Good. Sorry about that. Just getting my recording and my computer all set up.
Terrific. And I will not be the person you are interviewing today, but it will be my boss, Antonio Romanucci, who will be joining us in just a second. I'm the PR person for the law firm, so I just wanted to be here for any follow-up or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I do just want to make sure that you've got this pinned so that when I turn my camera off, my box doesn't appear on your video. It'll just
Okay.
be right in a single shot,
Yes.
not that three-person situation.
Right.
So I'm not sure how much Jenny shared with you. I talked with her a little bit this morning, and uh, we really do see that there's an important piece that isn't making all the coverage. And the family is now represented by our firm and Antonio Romanucci and civil rights attorney Ben Crum. And the two of them together have represented the family of George Floyd, the family of Tyree Nichols. So these guys really do know their police misconduct cases.
Hmm.
And they have some pretty significant concerns about the police narrative versus what they're seeing on the body cam. And and really feel that there's an important counter conversation that needs to be included here. So I think that's what you can expect from him in the
Yes, that'd be
conversation.
perfect. Yeah, thank you again. I really appreciate you both kind of being present and being here. That means a
Yeah, you
lot
bet.
for us. Yeah.
You bet. And I know he's planning on joining. We were just talking less than 5 minutes ago. So,
Perfect.
and there he is.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. There we go.
Hello.
There we
Hello. How are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Very good. It's very nice to meet you and Jennifer.
Nice to meet you too, Drew.
I'm going to be turning my camera off and my audio, but Tony, I was just telling Drew that he can expect to hear from you about a counter conversation and a pushback on the police narrative that we don't feel has gotten the coverage it deserves.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. We can honestly go right into it, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
And so just kind of to start, obviously this has been a very ongoing thing. It's been a month yesterday since Jakarta Jackson was shot by a police officer. Before we kind of go into what Jennifer had mentioned, can you kind of just give me a little insight into the emotions of the family in the last month?
Well, the emotions of the family are running extremely high because we're not getting the full story. And even if we are getting the full story, Drew, I'm very concerned at how this police department is spinning the story with such insensitivity, not only to this family, but to the community. I haven't seen a police department work this hard to try and justify a shooting, which we feel has no justification whatsoever. So their emotions are running extremely high for those two reasons. There are more, but those are the two primary reasons.
And can you go into kind of those reasons that you think, kind of what you're detailing about the police spinning it a different way? Can you kind of highlight what you guys are talking about in that sense?
I'd be happy to. You know, really what I'm seeing happening here is almost like a classic Shakespearean type of play where Lady Macbeth is washing her hands because they're dirty and she's trying to justify, what she did. And this is what RIPD is doing. When you look at the facts of this case, let's look at the uncontested, undisputed facts of what we know. Jakarta was never armed. He never had anything in his hands or in his car which could or might have caused either bodily harm or death to the police officer. He did not have weapons. They're saying that his car was being used as a weapon. Well, let's take a look at the car itself then. So what do we know? That this officer stopped Jakarta in his car. As soon as he saw Jakarta walking away from his car, what did this officer say to him? He used an expletive and he said, "I'm going to shoot you." So immediately it was predetermined from this officer that when he was going to capture Jakarta, he predicted that he was going to shoot him. And for what? If you take that snapshot And we're going to talk about the totality because the totality is extremely important here also. But at that moment in time where the officer said, stop, or I'm going to effing shoot you, what was Jakarta doing? He was walking away from the police officer. And what was the underlying basis for him walking away? Well, according to the officer, he knew that Jakarta had an outstanding warrant for a failure to appear, and because he didn't have his blinker on the car. We know that. Now, you tell me in what world, under what general order or police directive, or under national standards of policing, whether a reasonable police officer tells an unarmed person who is walking away from them, stop, or I'm going to shoot you. That is the definition of an unreasonable police officer. And that's why we're saying this officer committed a crime, because at all times, Jakarta was unarmed. Even when Jakarta got back in the car, and now this is where the police say this shooting is justified. Well, what do we know? The officer was never in front of the car. So he was never put in a position where his life was in danger, because if that car had moved forward, then it could have been used as a weapon. We know that officer at all times was 90 degrees to the car. He was parallel to the driver's seat. And we saw the car move maybe inches back and forth. He wasn't driving away. It was moving inches. That officer placed himself in jeopardy. That's called officer-created jeopardy. Because what the officer should have done as a reasonable officer, knowing that there wasn't a crime being committed, there was not it was a non-violent crime for the underlying warrant. What he should have done was actually either come back, de-escalate the situation, find Jakarta at another location, or at least use de-escalation techniques to place him under arrest, and then maybe escalate up to other non-deadly uses of force. This is one of the most unjustified police shootings I have ever seen, completely in opposite to the conclusions and the narrative that RIPD is putting out.
And I want to say that I had spoken to the Rock Island Police Department, and this is what they say. They claim that when the officer arrived on the scene, he had already told Jakarta 3 times to come near him before he began to run. And this is just what the footage I saw and everything. It almost shows the officer saying what you're saying, threatening to shoot him after the chase began. Do you want to cover that at all? I'm just wanting to clarify.
Yes. Once again, you actually have seen more than what we have seen. We have a FOIA request out for all the police footage, for all the BWC and the dash cam, and it sounds like that RIPD was willing to share it with media before they even shared it with us, where we have a lawful FOIA out. But let's assume hypothetically that Jakarta was running away from the police officer. You still do not shoot under any reasonable policing standards. You do not shoot at a suspect or someone who may be innocent who is running away from you when they are unarmed and have not posed any threat of bodily harm or death. So this narrative that they're spinning is actually, I'm going to say, almost bizarre. That's why I'm comparing this to a Shakespearean play, because they are taking such steps to analyze only seconds in time and not the totality of the circumstances, which is certainly required. This officer lacked the situational awareness to actually evaluate this scene, understand what the underlying charges were, what Jakarta was doing, and then had disregard. He had disregard for the people who were inside the car, who were not charged with any crimes, who were similarly unarmed. And there were young people in the area, if I'm not mistaken, even children we hear crying. What world was he in where he thought it was okay to shoot somebody who did not pose a threat, who was unarmed, was not violent, where there were a number of innocent people who were surrounding him and lacked any situational awareness at all. When this officer said, "Stop or I'll shoot you," he anchored himself to that statement and he predicted what he was going to do. And I'm going to direct you to a very similar case that happened within the past year here in Illinois. And that's Sonia Massey in Sangamon County, where that officer said the same thing. "If you don't put that pot down, I'm going to shoot you." And what did he do? He shot her. It's the same thing that happened here. That officer predicted he was going to shoot him, and he anchored himself that if he didn't catch him, if he didn't actually subdue him, put him under arrest or stop him, that he would shoot him. And that's exactly what he did. And that is wrong by any policing standards.
And do you find it almost peculiar that the family and yourself have not yet gotten the access to the body cam footage?
Well, it's extremely peculiar because if this department is arguing so hard to justify this shooting, then they should only be one thing, and that's transparent about it. Let's see everything, and then let's let you, the public, and us evaluate all of this video so that we can determine whether or not this was justified. I promise you, we will have the best experts in this country looking at this video and the totality of the circumstances and weighing in on whether or not there is liability here. Now, of course, I'm talking about the civil side of the case, but when we're even looking at the criminal side, I want a new investigation here. I want a completely new and independent review of this case because the totality shows that there could or might have been a crime committed here, and I want it to be independent. I don't want any insiders looking at this. And if an independent investigation comes back where they clear the officer, we will accept that, and we will continue to move on with the civil case, which has a totally different burden of proof, of course, than the criminal case.
And this probably goes without saying, but I'll ask it anyway. So from your guys' end, you believe that the officer escalated the situation on his own merit rather than the other way around?
Oh, there's no doubt. In order for Jakarta to have escalated the situation, when you look at what's called the continuum of force, okay, there has to be some sort of action on the part of the other individual, who in this part was Jakarta, that would cause this officer to escalate from 0 to 100. And so when you look at what Jakarta did, let's say that walking away from the officer on the continuum of force, that's considered a passive resistance at most. So passive mean no weapon, no punches, no kicking, no spitting, no turning of the shoulder, no weapons in your hand, nothing of that. That means just moving away. That's passive aggressive. And then, of course, you move forward from there. And so the officer has to match his force with that of the individual. Now, in general, an officer can go from 0 to 100 under very special circumstances. I mean, if all of a sudden there's a knife or a gun drawn from someone's pocket or waistband and it's being brandished or being shown or pointed, then that officer is fully allowed to go from 0 to 100. But in this case, it was 100% the officer's escalation to deadly force, immediately saying, "I will shoot you." That right there becomes a de facto arrest under the Fourth Amendment. Jakarta then is under arrest. He is not free to leave the scene. For what? For walking away? Now, I know what some people are saying. He should have listened. He should have complied. But when someone says, "I'm going to shoot you," and you're 21 years old, there are certain things that go through your head. And especially when you're Black, and the officer is white, that is a very extenuating circumstance. And that has to be considered. That racial issue between the white officer and the black victim here has to be considered. A white officer telling him, I'm going to shoot you. Well, what do you think is going to happen? Exactly what he said happened. He shot him.
And do you think that the Rock Island Police Department needs to change its policies or training in order for a situation like this to have a decreased chance to happen in the future?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, I think there needs to be a systemic overview of either their training or how they train, and certainly a review of their policies. Because if they're justifying this, if this shooting is being justified, quite frankly, the entire community of Rock Island needs to be concerned. If this is considered a good shoot, a justified shooting, then that means that Rock Island citizens need to be on, but forget being on alert. They are actually walking back in time when we didn't have a constitution. The Fourth Amendment allows people to be reasonably free from unreasonable search and seizure. And you're going to tell me that this was a reasonable seizure under the law? Absolutely not.
And obviously, the Rock Island Police Department had concluded their internal investigation just yesterday and released that out to us. What was your guys' reaction to that? And more specifically, what was your guys' reaction to that same police officer to soon be returned to work?
So that was the administrative, that was the internal Rock Island Police Department. And so we disagree with that also. I mean, again, Rock Island Police Department is basically ratifying or justifying this police officer's actions by them saying, by putting him on his 30-day admin leave, which is under contract, which is probably what happens after you discharge your weapon, putting him right back on duty says, give him a pat on the back and said, that's okay. What you did was good. That was good policing. If you do that again, the same thing will happen to you. And that sends a message to his fellow officers that if they do that, if they shoot, if they tell somebody that's running away from them for committing a nonviolent crime who's unarmed, and they say, we're going to shoot you if you don't stop, and then they catch him and they shoot him, and that's okay. So that's what that means.
And you had mentioned it kind of before, but the argument that it can be made on the other side of you guys is that the car was, like you said, they claim it was acting as a weapon and dragging the police officer. And I know you had mentioned before, but if you don't mind going over it again, kind of why you guys dispute that claim and why you guys believe the cop was in little to no danger in this incident.
Yes, I'm very familiar with the law, not only in Illinois, but around the country, as to when a motor vehicle is or could or might be utilized as a weapon. If the officer was not standing in front or behind the car, and there was little to no movement, I don't understand how a car can be a weapon. So what Rock Island did was just draw the conclusion that a motor vehicle can be a weapon. Do I agree with that statement? Yes, I do. I agree that a car, a motor vehicle, even a motorcycle could or might be a weapon if it's handled inappropriately in the presence of a police officer. In this particular case, when that officer was in the front driver's side door on the inside of it, he was not being dragged. And if he was dragged even half an inch, he put himself in that situation. He put himself in jeopardy, in danger. He didn't need to be there. He placed himself there to put somebody under arrest for a non-violent incident or crime which posed no threat to him. So once again, his situational awareness was off. It wasn't there. He wasn't evaluating where he was or what he was doing. And that harkens back to another case that I'm very familiar with, which gained nationwide attention in Minnesota. And that's the case of Dante Wright. When Kimberly Potter, in a very similar situation where the driver was moving away, she went to tase him. She at least understood that you don't shoot at a person driving, because what happens then? That could cause more harm or danger. Unfortunately, even though she wanted to tase Dante Wright, she reached for her gun and shot him. And ultimately what happened was that car did act as a weapon, not towards the police officer, but to other innocent bystanders down the road.
And also, like you mentioned before, you think that decision was intensified because there was other people in the car, let alone children?
Absolutely. And that goes back again, Drew, not only to situational awareness, but totality of circumstances and de-escalation techniques. You know, without, you know, I don't want to draw conclusions that aren't there, but without a weapon visible in anyone's hands, without a weapon visible in the interior of the car, without any other exigent circumstances which made this a situation where you escalate from 0 to 100, there is no basis for pulling out your gun and shooting.
And what kind of is the next step in terms of what the family is looking, or the legal team like you is looking? Is the next step the body cam footage should be given to you guys to assess your case?
Well, there's no doubt. I mean, if the media has the body cam footage, we demand an immediate release to the family of all this footage, so we can all evaluate it. We can determine on our own, through our own investigation, what we need to do next. And then we will take all appropriate steps once we have all of the facts.
And with the state's attorney clearing the officer, you guys are looking more of the civil route? Is that what you guys are looking at, or what's kind of the end approach for you guys?
Well, I'm asking for another independent and separate investigation that doesn't have any sort of connection or bias to the Rock Island Police Department. So we're demanding another investigation looking into any criminal actions. And certainly our team is dedicated to the civil case. But you must understand, Drew, in these cases, everyone is looking for accountability. And accountability in these types of matters ranges from criminal to civil to administrative and even legislative changes. So there are multiple avenues of accountability here, and we want to make sure we check off each one.
And my last question would be, what do you want to say in regards of the family's behalf, and kind of as this keeps going, kind of what can you say from your legal standpoint and on the family's behalf as a final comment?
Yeah, I mean, on the family's behalf, I know that if they had the opportunity, they would say that they are mourning a terrible loss, somebody that should not have been killed. This is the definition of what a wrongful death is. His death was wrong. There was no right in him being killed. So this is why this is so painful for them. This was a young life that was taken away without any notice. In 1 second, in one tick of the clock, Jakarta's life was taken away wrongfully. So I know that they are going through a lot of suffering. On behalf of the community, which has been so strong and so supportive of the family, I urge them to continue to support the Jakarta Johnson family as much as they can, because they need it during this time.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it for your time and everything. I want to ask you one clarifying question. Your name is pronounced Antonio Romanucci, correct?
Antonio Romanucci.
Romanucci. Thank you so much.
Not Romanucci. It's Romanucci.
Yeah. Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Yeah.
That's all the questions I had. So I think we are done here. I really appreciate you and Jennifer kind of coming in and taking your time to talk with me.
Yeah.
And kind of giving your guys' side of the things, because that's always important in every story.
I really think this is important, because everything I said, I feel from the bottom of my heart. I mean, this investigation I'm not saying was rushed, because I've seen other investigations done quickly, but the force with which they're coming at this is surprising when you look at the underlying facts. And that's what we're asking the media and the community to look at, is the underlying facts. Ask the questions, what's uncontested. And that's what I did for you today.
Right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Drew. Have a
Have a
good
great
day.
day. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.